Hi there, Fiona Pearman and Kate Borer, joining you to continue our conversation about fixing the system and its impact on women. And this week we're going to dive into what happens to women in the system while we're waiting for it to be fixed. And as we mentioned last time, this is complex. The system is broad, there are many different interconnected factors, and most of us are not really super aware of what's going on. We're not necessarily conscious that our beliefs, assumptions, and behaviours are really driven by a lot of those systems that happened early in our lives. And so we're not even aware we need to do anything about something that's relatively invisible to us. When we talk about fixing the system, we're generally talking about, in this context, organisational systems. And so as we think about this, we're conscious that the work of WGEA has actually led to a lot of good things. We've got good reporting, we've got some targets, we've got some transparency. We can see things and have conversations that we weren't having before. But that in and of itself can't address the broader cultural, systemic, and structural systems that determine how we all and how women will show up in workplaces. And there are consequences of that. And even simple things like if I can compare Australia and Scandinavia, which for some time has mandated parental care for everybody. And so we're in the second generation of fathers fully participating, being active, present parents, and that's now a norm. We're very far away from that in our country, and it would take a lot, I think, to shift that. So even if we did manage to get perfect organisational systems, structures, policies, we dealt with power and influence, the people in the system, the people driving it, making choices, they're going to be hijacked by, they're going to be influenced by their beliefs, their assumptions, all the systems that influence them on the way through, their family systems, their education. And so we need to be conscious that this is complex, tricky, and difficult. And when we see it play out, it's no wonder we find this hard.
Yeah, I think this is really well demonstrated through stories that we hear every day through working with clients in the Acts of Confidence program. I was recently talking to one of our alumni who was high talent, high potential, had been in discussions with her organisation for a couple of months around a promotion opportunity. She demonstrated and contributed great value, and so she'd been noticed, recognised, and the organisation saw an opportunity to really leverage her skill, capability, and experience in other areas of the business. So a couple of months into the conversation, as pieces were moving, the conversation went from certainty and clarity around promotion and pay rise to a conversation around, well, we're not quite there on the budget, and I think maybe you're not quite ready yet, so maybe you could take the role for 6 months, and we'll talk remuneration in 6 months' time. Quite a common scenario that we hear. And so in our experience, many women would firstly feel quite grateful and flattered at the promotion because they had been recognised, even if it hadn't had the remuneration attached to it. They'd probably be a little bit, annoyed about the late change to the remuneration conversation, but likely to kind of keep that to themselves, not necessarily negotiate, but accommodate, not want to risk relationship or fear that that promotion might be taken off the table. And so likely to say yes, knowing that they would prove their value and hope that the money would flow at that 6-month mark. So if we were in a system, if we'd fixed the system, so that wasn't Jen, we'll call her Jen's experience, we'd do things like we'd standardise promotion process around decision criteria. We'd move away from this conversation around potential or gut feel to observable behaviours that are measurable. We'd eliminate this conversation around prove yourself first. That wouldn't be possible. Perhaps you would, be given acting up secondments, but there would be no sort of unpaid stepping up scenarios in an organization. We'd define and publish salary bands. So there was certainty and transparency around where roles sat in the bands and what the band range was. And I think the New South Wales government and governments generally do this really well. And we know that the gender pay gap is lower in government agencies generally because of this transparency, and because there really is, it's almost impossible. In fact, I've coached many clients who are talking to me about how do we have conversations about negotiating remuneration within that system, because it is very fixed and it is very transparent. And, you know, we would make effectively reduce the reliance on negotiation, on women to negotiate salary in those circumstances as well. And I think the other critical piece beyond sort of those two really structural or process orientated pieces is we train leaders to recognize bias in real time. Leaders catching themselves maybe where they're rewarding confidence over competence, and catching themselves where they're potentially seeking to work around process policy structures because of their own biases, beliefs, default behaviours.
So it's big and there is so much to attend to. And you can see from the macro piece right down to the minutiae of what we would need to attend to and address in order to be able to create this fixed system that could be relied on to deliver fair results. It's really hard. There is so much internal loyalty, so much belief in what I've experienced and the unwillingness necessarily to let go of the past and to create a new transparent different structure and system. So when we put all of those pieces together, and we work with organisations who've got good intentions around this and are trying to do it, but we need to recognise at the same time, it's vital that we resource women to meet the challenge of the system, to be willing to take different actions, to think about things differently and to change things from the bottom up. And when we think about Jen and her story, because she'd been through the Acts of Confidence program, because she knew her value, she knew how to articulate it, she knew how to advocate for herself, she was able to decline that offer that was really out of integrity with what she deserved, and say, you know, she wasn't willing to do it until budget was made available. And even though there was some fear around the impact that might have on the relationship or future promotions, she was willing to disrupt the system, to have a conversation that felt uncomfortable, to do something that meant that actually the organisation would have to review what it was doing and whether that was actually fair and transparent and in alignment with this idea that we're going to have systems that can be relied on to be equitable.
We're going to leave it there. If you've enjoyed today's confidence conversation, we'd love for you to comment below. If you know someone who would benefit from being part of the conversation, of course, we'd love for you to share this video with them. If you want to find out more about or hear more of the confidence conversations, head over to our YouTube channel, over 400 videos, lots of different topics related to this one, and also resourcing women to absolutely meet the system that they are part of. And if and when you're ready to go deeper with your relationship with core confidence, head over to our website, coreconfidence.com.au. Thanks for tuning in today. Don't forget to hit subscribe on your YouTube channel for more insights on confidence, leadership, and complex work environments. We drop new videos regularly and we'd love to share them with you.